Hi YouTube, today I'll be reviewing the RAVpower FileHub Plus wireless router, the RPWD03, which has been around for a few years now. It's amazing. It's a portable router, it's a power bank, it's a network access storage device, and it's a little embedded Linux computer all in the palm of your hand. Now, most of the things I mentioned you can do with the stock firmware, but if you want to use this as a delightful embedded Linux machine, you need to flash OpenWRT in replacement of the existing firmware. It's really simple, and I'll show that in part of my video. So my video is going to have two parts. The first part is just going to be looking at the exterior of the machine and what ports are present, plus a bit about the hardware specifications. And then the second part is going to be a screen capture from my computer showing you a demo of OpenWRT and some applications that I've compiled for OpenWRT on this device. And with that, let's get started. Alright, and with that I'll get started and talk a little bit about the hardware specifications of the RAVpower FileHub Plus. This has a MediaTek MT7620N system on a chip, which includes both a MIPS CPU and the wireless Wi-Fi hardware. The MIPS CPU is 580 megahertz. It's from the Little Endian 24K series, and it's RISC architecture. There's flash built in on the motherboard, 8 megs, that contains either the stock firmware or the OpenWRT firmware that I flashed on it, and an SD card slot that lets you give more flash non-volatile storage to the unit. There's 32 megs of RAM that OpenWRT or the stock firmware can work with. So not too much, but for the things for which you would use this, that's plenty. As far as the WLAN hardware and the Wi-Fi, this is 802.11 B, G, or N. So it's up to N speed connections. There's one 100 megabit Ethernet port on the bottom of the device. And there's two USB ports. A single regular USB 2.0 port in order to attach hard drives, flash drives, USB serial adapters, all sorts of peripherals, and one micro USB port to charge the machine. I'll start with the bottom here. So I'll show you that on the bottom there's the connection for Ethernet and USB on the left and right there. On the left side there's nothing, but on the right side there's a reset pin port and then the place where you plug in your micro USB cable for charging. And on the top is the place where you insert your SD card. So I'll show you how much I have on here. 4 gigs. Plenty of room for your network access storage. I don't know how high you can go. I would imagine this could handle SDHC cards. So now I'll go back to the top and show you the nice lights and buttons that you get on the front. There's the, you guessed it, power switch, plus a light around that. 4 lights to indicate the battery level, and then an indicator for the network connection. Now I have OpenWRT on mine, so the behaviors I'll show you in a second are a bit different from the stock firmware. Normally you'd see a green light come up and hold once you connect to the internet here, but that does not happen with OpenWRT. And there's also some differences in the power light that I don't recall. If I lightly press the power button, I see the battery charge status in increments of 25%. And if I hold the power button, you'll see the lights proceed upward to the Wi-Fi status indicator. And that means that my little Linux machine is booted up. Now in a few seconds, you might see some flashing of the power button LED, indicating that searching for a network. Let's see if we get to that point. And again, you can see it's just blue up top. Yo, there we go. Yeah, so have that flashing going. And that comes up normally when it's searching for a network, both in OpenWRT and in the stock firmware. Okay, so that's booted up. So in a second, I'll get this connected to my Windows PC through PuTTY, and I'll show you both a sample OpenWRT session, and before that, some of the websites that are useful for learning about putting this nice little Linux distribution on your portable battery-powered router. I just remember there's one last thing I should probably show you. Hopefully I can focus on the back here. On the back, it indicates that this machine has 6,700 milliampere hours of charge that it stores. So you imagine you could let this run for quite a long time if you assume 300 milliamps of power being used by the Linux machine part of this, so by the motherboard. I've heard some people say you get about 6 to 8 hours of battery life doing regular use with this running as an OpenWRT machine, but don't quote me on that. You'll have to try that yourself. Alright, now I'll begin the screen capture portion of the video. And here I'm just going to go over some websites with information on installing OpenWRT on the FileHub Plus, as well as how you can use mine that's been flashed with OpenWRT, both through the LuCI GUI interface as well as through the command line, which you can access through SSH over your Wi-Fi connection. So the page you're looking at here is the OpenWRT page with technical details about the RPWD03. It's been supported since 18.06. Oops, there we go. It is a MIPS device, MIPS little endian 24KC, 580 megahertz. And anyway, so I've gone through these details before, and there's some important websites right down here with the places where you can download the firmware upgrade to install OpenWRT. These two squashfs-sys upgrade pages. And you install it through a TFTP, so you'll have to learn how to set up a TFTP server on your Windows or Linux machine. Okay, now if I go to this other page here, there's more pictures of the WD03 and information about installing OpenWRT on it. Hardware bits, and so the directions for installing OpenWRT are down here below installation. You download your sys upgrade image, label it kernel in the root of your TFTP server. Set your computer with a certain IP address. Use an Ethernet cable to connect your WD03 to your computer, or as it's saying here, through a hub's better. Turn off the WD03, turn it back on, and hold down the power button until the first white LED lights up. And right then you push and hold the reset button. So that takes a little bit of practice, and that's when it installs the kernel file. And after that, you can let the reset button go. That's about 30 seconds after boot up. And there's a video over here that I'll show you in a second that shows you how to do that properly. Once the machine's booted up again, your router's booted up again, the IP is 192.168.1.1, and then, this says how you can interact with the device via an Ethernet cable, and then you set up the WLAN later. There's information for going back to the original firmware, some details on the flash layout, and so on and so forth. can see again photos of the machine. I showed you the video, and the main circuit board with that big SD card slot. Okay. This is a video. Again, you can find it on the OpenWRT page with details on installation, and it shows you how long to hold the button down right about here at 50 seconds in. Yeah, this is unlisted in YouTube, but shows you when you press that reset button. So that's a really good website to check. And now with all that stated, I'll switch to using the device first through LuCI. My router is connected at the address you see on the screen. I'm not accessing directly through the network that the router generates. This is through my home router connection, which is connected to the FileHub Plus. I'm going to log in, and now you can see the details of the system configuration, and in a second it should show us the free memory that's available. All this is in the GUI LuCI interface, which you can install as a package through the OpenWRT package manager. You can see the network connection, how it's connected to the wireless network is a client for this other router in my apartment, and different wireless connections and so on. So there's other things you can see in the status. I don't think anything all that exciting there. Let's see, for the system, you can change different system properties, administration things, change SSH access. And then as far as software, you can look up all kinds of packages of interest, GCC for example, and install those directly from the GUI without having to do anything in the command line. Let's see other things. You can see what's in the startup scripts. That's also accessible. Mount points. Yeah. And one thing I'll get to in the command line part is the overlay. This has xroot, which means it will extend the root file system all the way over to the to a properly formatted SD card inside the machine. This is great. This gives me 3.6 gigs of storage for whatever I want, backing up files and so on, in addition to just storing extra OpenWRT packages. You can see, so that's all system things. Another exciting thing is you can back up configuration files, you can restore configuration files, and then flash a new OpenWRT firmware upgrade as well. I've installed a printer server. You could share a printer over the network that's, say, connected as a USB or serial printer through P910ND. And then, of course, this is router firmware, so you can do tons of configuration for the network. My router is set up to bridge my home wireless LAN, you can see on the bottom, with the wireless LAN that the router generates. So if you connect to the wireless LAN of my FileHub Plus, that will bridge you over to the main router in the house, which is connected to the internet. And that could be useful, say, if you want to share internet that you buy with other people around you. Maybe not a good thing to do, or maybe good. Anyway, here's more details on wireless. You can see all the access points, either that are to which this is connected, or that other radios that are connected to this. And yeah, I think that's just about everything. So just the point here is, with LuCI, there's a lot of stuff that you can configure outside of the command line. Now with that, I'm going to open up a command line connection through PuTTY to OpenWRT. panel. .192.168.2.8. And there you go, a command line connection, not directly through the router's wireless LAN, but through my home router's wireless LAN, and my home router is connected to the FileHub Plus portable router. You get the OpenWRT greeting, and this is just various bits of stuff that are stored in my home directory. You'll notice some interesting files up top here. I have some scripts to print to my Seiko serial printer, and so I could upload a file from one of my vintage computers to the router through a USB serial connection, and then through another separate connection, TTY USB 3 you can see here, I can print out a file in 80 column format, 40 column, or 20 column, and this has been really nice. And besides that, there's a lot of other stuff, but I won't have time to get to all of that. I think do I have HTOP? Yes, I do. So you can see everything running. There's quite a bit of the RAM that's used up at any given time. There's an HTTP server, of course, that has to run for LuCI to work. But again, standard HTOP. Top as well. Control-C. Clear. Okay. And in addition to this, there's GCC for the MIPS machine. That works nicely. I have compiled a good bit of applications for this, since I'm using it almost like a teeny mainframe, using vintage computers as consoles. But it's pretty slow, I would say, to compile on the router itself. You're better off installing QEMU on a Linux machine, and then the Malta environment to cross-compile for MIPS router processors. And so before I finish, I'll point out a few things that I've cross-compiled. There's no telnet built into this OpenWRT image, and it was very hard for me to compile a new image with telnet enabled in BusyBox. So I took the source code for telnet in BSD, like Mac OS X, and then cross-compiled that for MIPS, and you'll see it works quite nicely. Connecting to the level 29 BBS. Okay. Yep. And I'll just see what messages are there. Nice. So you have telnet in addition to the standard SSH. That's really wonderful. Okay, disconnect. Okay, so that's one thing that I've cross-compiled, but I've also cross-compiled some more fun things like frauds for interactive fiction. Okay, well, I'll have to sudo. Yeah, anyway, that defrauds maybe. Yeah, okay, so I can use defrauds even as root, and just again, you can play Z machine games with your OpenWRT router. I have a bunch of BSD games. No. Yes, I have Hangman, Boggle, I think. Den, dot, nod, dose. You get the idea. So there's BSD games. I'm thinking of other things I've compiled. I wasn't able to get G4th, but I do have PFE, which is nice. It's a nice portable 4th environment. And again, you know, 4th is quite portable. Let's see other things. On NetHack, yes, I have NetHack. Okay, great. And it's been quite challenging to cross-compile everything. I'll see if I can just get binaries for anyone who really wants, you know, a particular application. Okay. Oh, I think that's about all that I will show you. I appreciate your attention, and I will have more videos coming up, a review of the HP 100 and 200LX, and then more videos on vintage computers in the future. I hope you appreciate this and will have fun with the FileHub Plus router, which doesn't just run embedded Linux by itself, but can run a fully expandable Linux system through OpenWRT.